So in this video, we will continue on the beginner's guide to SDL2 in Haskell. So if you're just starting out with this video, you can go to github.com, Programming Rainbow, Beginner's Guide to SDL2 in Haskell. You can git clone that repository, move inside the directory, and this video is video number 4. So you'll want to grab the code from the folder named or directory named video 3. That was the last video, and you'll want to copy that code into the app directory. Okay, so let's look at the actual code here. So you'll want to grab, if you're just starting with this video, this main.hs that's in video number 3, and you'll want to copy it into main.hs. What's in there by default is the video 8, the final project, if you just cloned it. So you'll want to copy that one in. So again, this is video number 4, so the last one was video number 3. This is where we left off with, was setting the background image that we loaded. And let me just run this code to show what it looks like. Okay, so we have an image being loaded. We have a title. This is 03 background, and this is a PNG image. We use the SDL image module that we qualified, loaded, import qualified SDL.image. So in this video, we are going to change the background renderer. Let me start it again and just show you this. So this image right here is actually the icon for Haskell and the text, but all the black part you see here is actually the render itself, not the image. So the image is transparent and the render behind it is black. So we can change the color of the render, and that's going to show through since the image is transparent there. So we're going to do that in this. And we will also be loading an icon. Let's start with changing the color of the render. So we want to change the actual color of the render. So we're going to use this function, and this is in, if you go to package.haskell.org/packages/SDL2, right? And when you get there, you can click on the actual SDL right there, and you'll be right where we're at. And we were changing the draw color right here is what we're interested in. But I want to take a minute to look at what this is right here. So if we scroll down further, it starts talking about the state. So this is some kind of IO action or something that holds the internal state of a couple different like variables in SDL under the hood. We need to use this so we can get the value of the state with get, and we can place it with this $equals. And we are going to need to use this to set the render draw color. You can read more about this. This is using the data state bar, but it's mostly hidden from us. We're just going to interface it with it one time here by using this $equals here. So this is a way for us to set a state variable, to set a value to it. Just kind of want to show you that it's here. It's at the bottom of this SDL page, but up above where we're looking at color, I'm just going to search for this render draw color. This is what we're using. So we can change the color with render draw color. We need the render itself. And then here is that setter right here. This $equals. That is setting this state bar. And then what we have here is we have a vector 4 that is basically 4 numbers that can be between 0 and 255. And you can think of these as RGB alpha. So red, green, blue, and alpha colors. This is going to be pretty simple. Let's just set this up. I am going to pull up my video 4 code just to use it as a reference. So I have all the names and everything set up correctly. I'm not changing my code too much. So I have a function called setRenderColor, and this is just taking the render, and it's returning an IO action. So it looks like we'll be lifting this. We're taking the render, we're going to take some random numbers, and then we're setting it right here. And I'm going to simplify this actually. So we don't need 2 lines here, we just need 1. But I can just walk through what I am doing here. I'm taking a render, it's returning an IO action. And we're going to be using this random RIO. And this is going to give us a random number between our low and our high, and it's including the low and the high. So includes the 0 and includes 255. So that's an 8-bit number between 0 and 255. And that's kind of standard for red, green, blue in SDL. How you set colors in SDL, you're going to be using 0 to 255. So I'm just getting a random number between 0 and 255 and binding that to R to G and to B. And then I'm setting that. I'm basically just creating a color. So this is going to be the SDL vector 4, as we saw. So this is red, green, blue, and this is alpha channel. So this color right here that's in their documentation, this is going to make a solid blue, as bright as blue as you can get, as saturated, because it's got 0 amounts of red, 0 green, and it's full blast on the blue. And the alpha channel means it's not transparent at all. It is completely opaque. Okay, so we're going to use 255 for our alpha channel as well, but we want to randomize what these are. But let's just try the color like they've done right here. And remember, the V4 is going to be SDL. This one's going to be SDL in front of it, and this render draw color is also going to be SDL in front of it. And I think it was set render color. Let me just make sure that that name is correct. Set renderer color. Okay. And this is going to be an SDL renderer to IO action. So let's just set the color directly. Let's just set it to like a medium blue-green color. So it would be SDL, and it's, I believe, set draw color. Set render draw color, maybe? Let's double check it. Render draw color. Oh, it's not even set, it's just render draw color. Okay. Okay. Renderer. Did it do something here? It did something. It did it here, right here. I'm going to have to track down how to disable that when it automatically adds stuff to my imports. So we want to set the, we need the render, and then we need to use this setter on this. And we should have the render here too. So we're going to use this SDL, and it's is it $equal? So this is our kind of our setter infix. And now we need this SDL vector 4. And let's try that medium green blue mix. So I'll go 0 on the red. I'll say 128 on the green, 128 on the blue, sorry, 128. And I'll say 255 on the alpha channel. So we can easily down here in our handle, like we did with the last video where we added a space. I'm just going to add that space again, but this time I'm going to use it for changing the color. So key code space. And we're going to use, because we're not in the same context, we're just returning an IO here. I'm going to have to lift this. And we do need the render here. Yeah, we are going to need the render. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up passing in game data to this handle event. I do have it on the later ones, but I didn't add it on the last video because we didn't need it, or in the last 2 videos. So I'm going to need to add it right here too. So this is going to be set render color, and we do need the renderer. So that's a problem because we don't have the render. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the game data. So we're going to add game data. That means we need to pass it in when we call this handle event. So this is going to be game data right there. And here we need to use the underscore because we don't care about the game data. We only care if the events list is empty. And here we need the I'll just call it game with a lowercase g, data. And now we need to get the renderer. So we'll say let render, and this will be game render, game data. So that's going to get that for us. Now we have the problem with is when we, down here, we need to also pass it into itself. So we need the game data here, and we need to send it in down here as well. Okay, so now when I start it up, it's going to be black, but when I press the space bar, it should change it to a bluish green color that is of medium intensity. So it's not going to be too bright. It's going to just be muted. But it's only going to happen one time because it's setting it to that color. So when I press space again and again, it's just going to stay that color. So that's what should happen if I've done this right. Okay, so we have our black background behind the Haskell, and if I press space, I'm going to do it now. It's changed it to this greenish blue color. But if I keep pressing space, it's still the same color. So we know that that's working. But before I forget, I want to go up to the top here and change this to 04 changing colors. Changing color and icon. So now that we have this working, why not get random colors for it? I'm going to use this system random. So this one's going to allow me to get a number in a range, and it returns an IO int. So this is pretty straightforward, but you can read about it. It's packages, it's in random. So in here, before I set the color, I could say R, so, since it's red, green, blue, I could say R, and I could say random. Now it's gonna, obviously it's gonna complain here. Okay, so I need to import system random. Now I don't think I did this before this way, but let me check. RIO. That's all I really need, I think, from random. And this is going to automatically set up. It already seeds the random number generator for you and everything else. So this is all you really need. So that should be there. Oh, okay. It's just complaining because I wasn't using it, I guess. So that's red. So we can just do this again and again. And for blue, I'm not going to do it for alpha because I want it to always be opaque. So I'm going to leave alpha at 255. So this is also 255. And so red, green, blue. So now when we press it, we should hopefully get a random number each time. And we'll check out. I'll kind of take note of the first 3 colors to see if we are getting different colors each time. Okay, first press. We got this kind of purple. Now we got a bright greenish yellow and a dark green. I'm just going to close it and do it again. Okay, that's a different color. It's not purple. And that's a yellow, and there's a red. One more time. Yeah. And I could just hold down space and it'll just change colors. Okay, so that's changing colors. We're just using random IO to get a color, and this is inclusive from 0 to 255. I'm just binding it to R, G, and B, and then I'm using it down here. In my original code, I was setting, like I just took this out right here. And I created a color from it. Like this. And then I just use the color. I just did that. You could do it either way. There's no reason to have the two lines here, so I'm just going to put it as the one line. Maybe I'll separate them out a little bit to be easier to read. But yeah, so that's changing the color, and we've already seen it's pretty easy to add something else here. And we know that this is an IO and this is state game IO, so we have to use the lift to lift it into the context. But pretty straightforward. So the next thing we want to do is load an image and set it as the window icon image. Okay, so in the prior video, we loaded an image as a texture where we used the SDL image load texture. Instead of loading to a surface that's a software rendered surface, it loads it directly to a hardware accelerated texture for your GPU. Now, when we load an image for the window, we don't need that. We just need the surface, not the texture, the different type. The surface is held in memory, and it's a software thing. It's not hardware accelerated. So the type would be SDL image surface, and as the type, or sorry, SDL surface, not image. That would be its type. So there is a function that does that, and it's just going to be SDL image load, not load texture, just load. And we don't need the render for it. But the rest of it's going to look the same, and that's going to give us a surface. And the way that we get rid of the surface is the same thing. We're going to destroy a surface, just like we free a surface. Let's see if we see it here. So we have set window icon. This surface right here is the type that we need. And we are still going to be using the function from, since we are loading a PNG to a surface, we are still going to be using it from the, I didn't leave it open, but it's from the SDL image module, but the actual type surface is part of SDL. So just the loading part is from the SDL image module, but the type surface is just part of the SDL module. So we need that to load a surface. So we just need the window and the surface. It's pretty straightforward. And that's the function name. So we need to load a surface, and then we can set the surface, and then to free a surface, here we go, free surface. This is how we destroy a texture, we free a surface. So this one just takes a surface to free it. So I'm going to do this in the initialize SDL, the init SDL section. We can put it under the render. This is going to be returning a surface. I just called it icon. That looks good. So this is just going to be of type SDL surface, this icon. And then we're going to use the safe run that we created, because this could fail. And what we want to do is SDL image load. It's not a load texture, it's just a load. And we don't need the render, we just need the image that we're loading. So this is going to be, again, it's going to be a path, a string. That's the file path. And the image that we're going to be loading is over here in images, and it's going to be the Haskell logo. So Haskell logo.png. And we also need to have a message if it fails. So we say error loading surface. Is that what I did for the texture? Yeah, error loading texture, error loading surface. And if it does succeed, I don't need to add this to the cleanup list, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to free it right after I use it. So I'm going to use it, and I'm going to free it right away. And I don't believe, I didn't check to see if this one failed or not. I run it directly. I'm not sure if this sends a failure at all. In SDL, it doesn't. So I'm not sure how Haskell would get an error on this one. So I'm just running this directly. this set window icon that we already saw. It takes a window and it takes a surface. And I don't believe there's an exception involved with this. I could be wrong though. So I'm not running it with safe run. I'm just running it directly. So this is SDL set window icon, and we need the window, which is just called window, and we need the surface, which is icon. And since we've used the surface, we no longer need it. So I'm going to free it immediately. I think it's free surface. Yeah, free surface, and the name of our surface is icon. So we don't need to add it to the add clean because I don't need to hold on to it. I'm not going to use this surface again. It's just loaded specifically to set it as the window surface icon, and then I'm immediately unloading it. We can see if this is going to compile, though I won't see the icon in my tiling window manager because I don't have window icons. But I'll see if I can load up KDE in a second here and show it. Okay, we didn't get a failure, so let's misspell it and see if we get a failure that way. Okay, yeah, that works perfectly. Error loading surface, so we do know that our safe run is working. Let's see if I can show this. Oh, here we go, Zephyr. Okay, I'm going to open up just a terminal, I guess. Alacrity sounds good. Okay, so we were in Beginner's Guide to SDL2, this directory. So if I just run stack, it should be stack run, that should be fine. Okay, and right here in the top left-hand corner, this is the icon that we loaded. And it also appears down here. So if you're in Windows or another operating system, or if you're in GNOME or XFC or something else that does show an icon, this is the icon that we just loaded. So that is what we loaded. So let's just cover what we've done here. We have made a new function that is, this is set render color, and it just takes a render. It's an IO action. Here's our renderer coming in, and we're using this random RIO to get a random number between and including 0 to 255. And I'm just pulling out 3 different numbers for RGB. And we are using the function render draw color. We're using the render, this other thing that changes the state var. It's a setter. And then we are using this, basically it's a vector 4. It's got 4 different numbers in it. It's building, it's constructing it. It's an RGB and an alpha. So our 3 numbers here are RGB, and our alpha is just static because we don't want it to ever be like see-through. It's just always 255. I don't actually think it even matters for the render. It doesn't show the desktop or anything. I'm not sure what would happen if you set it to 0. Let's find out. Yeah, I don't think anything happens here, but just for best practices, when I don't want something see-through, I'm going to leave it 255. So that was setting render, and we have done it in the handle events. We have run it right here as the space keyword. We did have to lift it into this context. We also needed to pass in game data to get access to the render. We could have passed in just the render itself, but I believe later on, we're also going to be passing in sound to it too. So I'm just going to make it game data so I can get access to the game data. And the other thing that we've done here is setting the icon. So we've done this in the, I didn't do it in load media because I'm not loading media and holding on to it. This is part of like starting up SDL. So we've used the SDL image load command to load a surface. That just takes a string as a surface. We're using a save command, to make sure if it fails or not. But this gives us a surface back, an SDL surface that we're calling icon. And then we can set the window icon with set window icon and the window itself and the icon. And then since we're no longer using this surface anymore, we are freeing it right away, this SDL free surface on the icon. The window icon will stay, but the surface no longer needs to be loaded into memory as a surface. It's done its thing. I'm sure there's memory allocated for the SDL window itself, but the actual surface, we don't need it anymore. So I'm immediately freeing it. Okay, so I think that covers everything. If you have any questions or comments, you can just leave them in the, in the bottom of the video. And I hope that was entertaining or educational. Have a nice day.